If your grocery bill keeps climbing, it may not be because you are buying too much food. And for a lot of people, that is the first mistake to clear up. This is not always a discipline problem. More often, it is a design problem. Grocery stores are built to push foods that look convenient, look helpful, and look like they will make life easier, right up until the receipt prints. The trap is not just expensive food, it is one-use food. Foods that solve one small problem cost far more than they should, spoil too fast, or leave you needing 3 more purchases to turn them into a real meal. Meal kits, snack packs, deli items, bottled sauces, frozen dinners, pre-cut produce. They all seem efficient. But quietly, they make basic eating cost more than it needs to. And that is why some of the smartest groceries in the store look almost too plain to notice. They last longer. They do more than one job. They stretch into different meals. They reduce waste. They give you options when you are tired, and that matters, because tired is when stores make the most money. So this is not about being cheap. It is about protecting your money from expensive shortcuts disguised as necessities. These are 15 groceries that quietly replace overpriced meals, snacks, and convenience habits. And once you see the pattern, it gets much easier to shop with control instead of hope. Rotisserie chicken is a good place to start because it is one of the few prepared foods in a grocery store that can still work in your favor. Most prepared foods are priced for convenience and then forgotten after one meal. Rotisserie chicken is different if you actually use the whole thing. A lot of people buy one for dinner, eat some of the breast meat, and then the rest drifts into the back of the fridge like a small financial regret. That is where the value disappears. But if you pull all the meat off while it is still fresh, one chicken can become dinner that night, sandwiches the next day, tacos after that, maybe soup, maybe rice bowls, maybe a salad topping. Even the bones can become broth. Compare that to what usually ends up in the cart instead. Deli meat at the counter. Packaged lunch meat. Pre-cooked chicken strips. A frozen chicken meal for one night. Maybe takeout after a long day. Suddenly, the same category of protein is being purchased 4 different ways, each with its own markup. A rotisserie chicken often costs about the same as 1 or 2 deli sandwiches, yet it can cover several meals if you treat it like an ingredient instead of tonight's entertainment. It also avoids some of the heavy processing in many lunch meats. And that matters. The key is simple. Use all of it, quickly. Because when a food gives you protein, flexibility, and multiple meals from one purchase, it starts behaving like protection, not convenience. And once you have that kind of leftover power, the next item becomes even more useful. Tortillas are one of the most overlooked low-cost foods in the entire store, and quietly, one of the most useful. Bread tends to do a very narrow job. Sandwiches, toast, maybe that last heel nobody wants. Tortillas are different. They turn scraps into meals. A little leftover chicken becomes a wrap. Eggs become breakfast. Beans become dinner. A small amount of cheese and vegetables becomes a quesadilla. Even rice that would otherwise sit in a container for 2 days suddenly has a purpose. That matters, because one of the most expensive things in a kitchen is not the food you never bought. It is the food you bought and then forgot how to use. A pack of tortillas is usually just a few dollars, but it can replace frozen breakfast sandwiches, deli wraps, quick lunch stops, and the very expensive habit of saying, "There is nothing to eat here," while standing in front of a full refrigerator. Stores love when leftovers feel inconvenient. Tortillas make leftovers useful. They also store well. Freeze them, pull out what you need, and they thaw quickly. That gives them the kind of long shelf life cheap food has to have if it is going to help you maintain control. And there is a subtle portion advantage too. A tortilla naturally sets some limits. It keeps meals simple and contained, which often reduces that drifting, grazing style of eating that leads to more snack spending later. So once you have something that can turn bits and pieces into a real meal, the next question is obvious. What is one of the cheapest ways to build those meals in the first place? That is where beans become very hard to ignore. Canned beans are one of the simplest ways to interrupt expensive, last-minute food decisions. And those last-minute decisions are where a lot of grocery damage happens. Not because people are careless, because people are tired. When the day runs long, that is when frozen meals start looking reasonable. Takeout sounds earned, and quick grocery runs somehow become $25. Beans work because they remove friction. Open the can, rinse them, and they are ready. They can go into soup, rice bowls, pasta, wraps, salads, or a quick skillet meal in less than 5 minutes. That means they are not just cheap. They are fast enough to compete with the food stores and restaurants profit from most. A can of beans can often stretch into 2 meals once you add rice, potatoes, or tortillas. Compare that to a frozen dinner that serves one, or a fast food bowl that costs several times more and still leaves you hungry 2 hours later. Beans are one of those rare foods that are inexpensive, filling, and flexible at the same time. They also give you fiber and protein together, which is a useful combination if you want meals to actually hold. That steadier fullness often means fewer snack decisions later, and those small decisions add up quietly. If sodium is a concern, rinsing canned beans helps. It also improves the taste. Small step, better result. And once quick meals stop requiring expensive backup plans, another leak in the grocery bill starts to stand out. Fresh produce that looks healthy in the store and then quietly expires before life makes room for it. Frozen spinach is one of the best examples of how a healthy purchase can still become wasted money if it depends on perfect timing. Fresh spinach has a very short emotional arc. It enters the house full of promise, spends 2 days looking virtuous in the crisper drawer, and then collapses into a wet apology. That is not a personal failing. That is a product with a very narrow window of usefulness. Frozen spinach behaves differently. It waits. You do not need to wash it, chop it, rescue it, or rush to use it before it turns. You take out what you need, put the rest back, and move on. It can go into eggs, soup, pasta, rice, casseroles, or even a smoothie if that is your sort of thing. The money difference is bigger than it looks. A bag of fresh greens that gets half used is not cheaper than frozen. It is more expensive because waste is part of the price whether the store mentions it or not. Frozen spinach removes that risk. It also gives you a consistent way to keep greens in meals without needing a separate shopping strategy for fragile produce. For many households, especially smaller ones, that consistency matters more than the image of buying fresh every time. And yes, it still gives you practical nutrition, iron, folate, vitamin K, without asking you to become a produce manager in your own kitchen. Once you stop losing money to vegetables with a countdown clock, the next category becomes hard to miss. Packaged snacks. And this is where small purchases can do surprisingly large damage. Apples are one of the simplest ways to push back against snack inflation, because packaged snacks are often some of the most overpriced foods in the store on a per-ounce basis. Snack bars, cracker packs, little dessert cups, single-serve this and that. They are not just food. They are packaging, branding, and convenience fees wearing friendly colors. An apple does the same basic job a lot of those products are trying to do. It gives you something quick, portable, familiar, and easy to reach for. But it does it without asking you to pay extra for wrappers and marketing language. A bag of apples often costs less than just a few days of individually packed snacks, and it can cover a week or more. They travel well. They last much longer than berries. They do not require prep beyond possibly a rinse, and if they soften, they still have a second life. Slice them into oatmeal, bake them, cook them down, or pair them with peanut butter. That is an important pattern. The smartest foods do not become useless the minute they stop being perfect. Apples also help with fullness in a way many sweet snack products do not. The fiber helps. The crunch helps. And because they feel like real food, they often reduce that odd cycle where a person eats a packaged snack and then immediately starts looking for another one. And once snacks stop, absorbing money in quiet little increments, something else becomes easier to spot. Some of the highest markups in the store are hiding inside foods marketed as healthy. Plain yogurt in a large tub is one of the clearest examples. Single-serve yogurt cups look sensible. They look portioned, organized, and responsible. They also tend to be one of the most marked-up refrigerated items in the store, especially once flavoring, added sugar, and cute packaging get involved. A large tub of plain yogurt does the same job for far less per serving. In many stores, the cost difference is not minor. It can be double or triple by the ounce once you compare tubs to individual cups. And you are not losing much except convenience that took someone else 5 seconds. The advantage is flexibility. Breakfast with fruit. Snack with oats. Sauce base for chicken or potatoes. A quick topping. Even a simple dessert if you add cinnamon or a little honey. One product can move across several roles, which is exactly what high-value groceries tend to do. It also lets you control sweetness instead of buying it preloaded. That means less sugar, more protein, and a better chance that it will actually keep you full. This is really the broader grocery pattern in miniature. The store charges the most when it saves you a tiny amount of effort and then frames that effort as a burden. Once you start noticing that, the next category becomes almost impossible to unsee. Whole potatoes are one of the cheapest full meal foods in the entire store, yet many people end up paying several times more for the processed versions of the exact same thing. Frozen fries, instant mashed potatoes, refrigerated potato sides, hash browns in little branded bags. The potato itself is not expensive. The processing is. A bag of whole potatoes can become baked potatoes, roasted wedges, mash, soup, breakfast hash, skillet meals, or a very solid emergency dinner with almost no planning. That is the kind of flexibility expensive convenience foods try to imitate. And potatoes do something else very well. They satisfy. For a low cost per serving, they create a meal that feels complete. That matters because unsatisfying meals are expensive. They send people back into the kitchen an hour later or out to buy something else. Stored properly, potatoes last for weeks, sometimes longer. That kind of shelf life is financial protection. It means one purchase does not pressure you into immediate use. It waits until you need it. There is also a subtle trap here. People will pay 4 times as much for a processed potato product because it looks easier, then wonder why simple dinners feel expensive. But the next item matters because plain, filling food still needs to taste like something worth eating. Onions are one of the cheapest ways to make ordinary food feel complete. And that matters more than people think. A lot of expensive grocery habits begin when basic food tastes flat. So people start reaching for bottled sauces, seasoning packets, pre-marinated meats, and all the little helpers the store loves to sell one at a time. Onions do a large part of that work naturally. As they cook, they add sweetness, depth, and that unmistakable sense that a meal was actually made, not assembled under pressure. Put them in soup, beans, rice, potatoes, eggs, pasta sauce, chicken, almost anything savory, and the whole dish improves. Financially, this matters because flavor products are often layered expenses. A sauce here, a packet there, another bottle for a different cuisine, all to solve the same problem. Onions solve a big part of it for pennies per use. They also store well, often for weeks, even longer if conditions are good. So unlike delicate herbs or pre-chopped flavor kits, they do not punish you for not using them immediately. This is where many smart carts begin to look similar. Long shelf life. Multi-use flexibility. Better meals with less waste. By now, you are probably noticing a pattern. How many groceries in your home right now do more than one job? That question matters because the next item is another small purchase that quietly prevents a lot of bigger ones. Garlic is one of the highest return ingredients in the grocery store. A single head costs very little, but it can change the flavor of an entire meal. Rice tastes better. Pasta tastes better. Chicken tastes better. Beans, vegetables, soup, potatoes, all improved by something that costs less than many people spend on. One bottled sauce. And unlike a lot of convenience products, garlic is not trying to impress you with branding. It is just effective, which may be why stores are so happy to upsell people into jarred garlic, garlic-heavy sauces, marinades, and seasoning blends instead. Fresh garlic usually gives better flavor for less money. Crush it, chop it, let it sit for a minute if you want the strongest effect, then cook. Very small step, very large payoff. The bigger point is that flavor does not have to come from expensive specialty products. Once onions and garlic are in the house, plain foods stop feeling plain. And when food at home actually tastes good, the pressure to outsource dinner drops fast. That becomes especially useful at breakfast, because breakfast is one of the easiest meals for stores to turn into a markup machine. Eggs are not just cheap protein, they are one of the fastest ways to replace expensive breakfast habits that repeat all week. Breakfast sandwiches, pastries, protein bars, drive-through stops, frozen breakfast items. None of them look too expensive one at a time. But repeated daily, they can become one of the quietest drains on a grocery budget. Eggs move in the opposite direction. They are quick, adaptable, and much more useful than people give them credit for. Boil a few ahead of time and breakfast is handled. Scramble them with spinach and onions. Fry them over potatoes. Fold them into a tortilla. Add them to rice. Suddenly, one low-cost ingredient can cover multiple meals, not just the first one of the day. That speed matters. If a food takes too long, people do not use it consistently. Eggs are fast enough to compete with convenience without carrying convenience pricing. They also provide complete protein, which helps breakfast last. That usually means fewer mid-morning snack purchases and less of that energy crash that makes processed food look persuasive before noon. And once breakfast stops requiring a premium, another category becomes easier to control: the default dinner. The meal people buy when they are too tired to negotiate with themselves. Dry pasta is one of the most reliable fallback foods in the store. And fallback foods matter because everyone eventually has a low-energy day. On those days, the issue is not knowing what to eat. It is needing something easy enough that you do not abandon the kitchen entirely. That is where pasta earns its place. It cooks quickly, stores for a long time, and works with almost anything already mentioned: garlic and olive oil, beans, spinach, onions, shredded chicken. Even a small amount of leftovers can become a full meal once pasta is involved. This is exactly why it protects your money. It stands between you and the expensive sentence, "Let's just order something." A box of pasta may cost only a few dollars and provide several servings. Compare that to takeout for two, a frozen meal that barely satisfies, or a prepared deli dinner with a high-convenience markup. It is also forgiving. You do not need a recipe for every use. And foods that do not require perfect execution tend to get used more often, which means less waste and fewer emergency purchases. Whole wheat versions can add more fiber if you like them, but even regular pasta works because the real financial strength is reliability. It is there when you need it. And once the basic structure of a quick dinner is handled, the next item helps simple food feel good enough that you stop chasing expensive flavor elsewhere. Olive oil is one of the few groceries that improves taste, satisfaction, and flexibility all at once. A bottle may not look cheap on the shelf, but used properly, it replaces several other products and stretches much further than people expect. Instead of buying separate cooking oils, bottled dressings, and various finishing products, one decent olive oil can do most of that work. Cook onions in it. Drizzle it over vegetables. Use it with garlic for pasta. Turn plain yogurt into a sauce. Add it to roasted potatoes or cabbage. It quietly connects a lot of these foods into meals that feel intentional. This matters because people often spend more when home food tastes dry, flat, or incomplete. Then cravings rise, takeout starts looking attractive, and the grocery bill grows from both ends. A little olive oil solves more than flavor. It improves meal satisfaction, which is not a luxury issue. It is a financial one. Meals that satisfy tend to stop the spending cycle sooner. It also stores well, and a little goes a long way. So while it is not the cheapest item on this list up front, its cost per use is usually much lower than the stack of specialty products it can replace. And once meals start feeling better without much effort, the produce section begins to look different too. Because the smartest vegetables are often not the prettiest ones. Cabbage is one of the most durable and underrated foods in the entire store. In a produce department full of delicate greens and hopeful purchases, cabbage is almost suspiciously stable. It can last for weeks in the refrigerator, and that alone makes it more valuable than many vegetables people buy with good intentions and then throw away. It also does more than people remember. Slice it for slaw. Stir-fry it. Add it to soup. Roast it. Sauté it with onions. Mix it into noodle dishes or simple skillet meals. It can be raw or cooked, soft or crisp, and it holds up much better than salad mixes that seem convenient until they liquefy in the drawer. That durability changes the math. If you buy bagged salad 3 times because it keeps spoiling, it was never cheaper than Cabbage. Repetition is part of the cost. Stores profit not just from high prices but from foods that force repeat purchases. Cabbage gives you another version of the same winning pattern. Long shelf life, low waste, high flexibility, low cost per serving. Those are not glamorous traits, but they are the traits that keep a cart under control. And when vegetables stop disappearing before you can use them, snack spending becomes easier to control too, especially with one item that works almost without effort. Peanut butter is one of the cheapest ready-to-eat protein options in the store, and one of the simplest tools for preventing impulse purchases. That matters because a lot of expensive food decisions happen in the gap between mildly hungry and very hungry. Peanut butter closes that gap quickly. Spread it on toast. Pair it with apples. Add it to oatmeal. Put it in yogurt. Make a sandwich. Or, on certain afternoons, a spoon works just fine. It requires no cooking, almost no preparation, and it keeps for a long time. Compare that to protein bars, snack packs, individual cracker sandwiches, or vending machine-style grocery snacks. Those products are priced around urgency. Peanut butter is priced like an actual food. It also helps with fullness because it combines protein and fat in a way that tends to hold. And food that holds helps protect you from the next unnecessary purchase. This is another subtle identity shift in a smarter cart. You are not just buying foods. You are buying fewer moments of vulnerability. Fewer moments when the store, the drive-thru, or the snack aisle gets to decide what your next meal costs. And that brings us to one last item that looks simple, almost boring, until you notice how many jobs it can do. Carrots are one of the easiest low-risk purchases in the store. They are cheap, they last, and they can move across meals without much effort. Raw snack, roasted side, soup ingredient, stew base, salad addition, tray vegetable, cooked with onions for flavor, they keep showing up because they are useful. That usefulness is the whole point. A lot of expensive foods are expensive because they are highly specific. They solve one tiny need. Carrots are the opposite. They add volume, color, sweetness, and substance to many different meals, which means they help stretch more expensive ingredients further. They also outlast most vegetables people tend to buy with optimistic plans. You can leave carrots in the refrigerator for quite a while and still have something workable. That lowers the risk of buying them in the first place, and low-risk groceries are often the best groceries. As a snack, they can replace chips and processed sides. In cooked meals, they bulk things out without making the meal feel padded or cheap. And yes, they bring practical nutrition too, but their biggest strength here is reliability. When a food is durable, flexible, and easy to use, it stops being one more thing to manage. It becomes part of a system. And that is really the pattern behind all 15 of these foods. When you step back, the difference becomes very clear. The groceries that protect your money are usually not the ones demanding attention in the store. They are not the foods with the brightest labels, the strongest convenience pitch, or the most emotional marketing. They are the foods that last longer, do more jobs, create less waste, and keep you from making expensive decisions when you are tired. Rotisserie chicken, tortillas, beans, frozen spinach, apples, yogurt, potatoes, onions, garlic, eggs, pasta, olive oil, cabbage, peanut butter, carrots. Different foods, same behavior. They reduce waste, they stretch, they adapt. They make simple meals possible. And that is what gives you control, because high grocery bills are often not caused by buying too much food. They come from buying too many foods that only do one job, too many foods with built-in markup, and too many foods that expire before real life gives you time to use them. Once you start building around foods like these, something shifts. The refrigerator feels calmer, meals become easier to assemble, the cart gets less random, waste drops. And spending usually follows not because you became stricter, but because you stopped paying for the store's preferred version of convenience. That is a very different feeling from restriction. It feels more like clarity. You do not need a perfect system. You just need a few groceries that keep working for you after you get them home. If this helped you look at your grocery cart a little differently, consider subscribing. Not for more noise, just for more calm, practical ways to protect your money and shop with a little more control.